Hello there, good evening and welcome to another edition of Primetime News on TV1. I'm Charlene Benedict for the Newsfirst team.
And I'm Theruni Karunaratna. Here's a look at your top stories for tonight. President in crucial roundtable discussion with IMF, World Bank and other international development partners. Sri Lanka to increase VAT to 18% in 2024. Electricity tariff review every 3 months. Salary hike likely by other budget. Conflict in Middle East could bring dual shock to global commodity markets, warns the World Bank. Petition challenging Diana's citizenship dismissed. Gum Mather goes global once again.
On to your top story now. Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe held a crucial roundtable discussion with representatives of international development partners. This was held as a follow-up to the previous discussion that was held in December 2022.
President Ranil Wickremesinghe, Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena, ministers, state ministers and officials took part in a roundtable discussion with representatives of international development partners. The President's media division said the representatives are from the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, International Monetary Fund, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, IFCA, Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, Japan International Cooperation Agency, USAID, European Union and United Nations attended this meeting. The focus of the meeting was on the government's reform programs aimed at moving from crisis to recovery and sustainable growth. The representatives had also discussed challenges, opportunities and commitments for Sri Lanka's development.
The Cabinet granted approval to increase the value-added tax to 18% with effect from the 1st of January 2024 and imposed the said tax on certain goods and services to which the value-added tax is not yet applicable.
At the weekly news briefing to announce cabinet decisions, it was revealed that state tax revenue of the first 9 months of 2023 increased by 51% compared to the year 2022. However, tax collection targets agreed with the International Monetary Fund had not yet been accomplished.
The
Cabinet of Ministers granted approval to escalate the value-added tax rate up to 18% with effect from 1st January 2024 and impose the said tax on certain goods and services to which the value-added tax is not yet applicable and implement some of the new tax proposals with effect from 1st January 2024. Including the imposition of the tax to enable accomplishment of tax revenue and primary balance targets as agreed with the International Monetary Fund.
The
cabinet spokesperson went on to note that these changes were necessary to secure the second tranche of the IMF Extended Fund Facility for Sri Lanka.
When the IMF team visited Sri Lanka recently, one of the reasons for the second tranche of the program to be delayed is that the revenue targets not being met by the government. Therefore, the Parliament will have to assure the means of securing the funding to proceed with the budget. We also need to engage in the state financial management process in order to meet the IMF conditions and the other operations of the country. Like it or not, we will have to amend the taxes in line with the rising of expenditure.
Value-added tax was introduced by the Act No. 14 of 2002 and is in force since the 1st of August 2002. The VAT Act replaced the Goods and Services Tax, which was almost similar to the tax on the consumption of goods and services. It is a tax on domestic consumption of goods and services. The goods imported into Sri Lanka and goods and services supplied within the territorial limits of Sri Lanka are the subject matter of this tax. The tax is borne by the final or the ultimate consumer of goods and services.
If we consider that there are 5 stages from the point that a particular item is produced to the point that it reaches the consumer, through this, an 18% tax will be imposed on all of those stages. We see this increase of VAT to 18% as an increase of about 125% of the VAT within the span of 1.5 years. This will result in the prices of all goods and services in the country increasing. This is imposed disproportionately in a society. When compared with the rich, the poor will have to pay a higher percentage of their income for this tax. This will result in the poverty in Sri Lanka increasing and the standard of living of the people depreciating.
The Cabinet of Ministers granted approval to review the electricity tariff every 3 months.
මාස 6කට වරක් විදුලි ගාස්තු සංශෝධනයේ සිදුවීම නිසා
When the electricity tariff is amended every 6 months, the people will be impacted every 6 months by the developments in the world market and other uncomfortable events. Therefore, permission was sought to review the electricity tariff every 3 months. Approval was also granted to implement a power dispatch audit of the Ceylon Electricity Board and strengthen hydroelectricity forecast with the assistance of the Department of Meteorology so that the general policy guidelines already implemented can be revised.
ඉදිරිපත් කළ කැබිනට් පත්‍රිකාවට අනුමැතිය ලැබුණා.
The World Bank warned that an escalation of the latest Middle East conflict could spike prices in the world market.
The World Bank said it expected global oil prices to average $90 a barrel in the fourth quarter and fall to an average of $81 in 2023 as slowing growth eases demand, but warned that an escalation of the latest Middle East conflict could spike prices significantly higher. The World Bank's latest commodity market outlook report noted that oil prices have risen only about 6% since the start of the Israel-Palestine war, while prices of agricultural commodities, most metals and other commodities have barely budged. The World Bank's deputy chief economist said that if a severe oil price shock materializes, it would push up food price inflation that has already been elevated in many developing countries. The World Bank said that if the Israel-Palestine conflict escalates, policymakers in developing countries will need to take steps to manage a potential increase in headline inflation. It added that the government should avoid trade restrictions such as export bans on food and fertilizer because they can often intensify price volatility and heighten food insecurity. At a time when the World Bank warns that the conflict in Middle East could bring dual shock to the global community markets, given the current economic situation in the country, will the proposal for a 20,000 salary hike be presented in the budget? It is reported that the President and the Cabinet had discussed the matter and reached an agreement to a certain increment.
ජනාධිපතිතුමා පසුගිය අයවැයේකන ඉදිරිපත් කරන අවස්ථාවේදී
When the president presented the previous budget, it was during a time when there was no electricity, fuel and even cooking gas. At that time he said that if this situation can be addressed within the year, the first thing he would do in the subsequent budget would be to provide relief to the public sector. The president informed the cabinet that the country does not have the resources to go for a salary hike. As a massive tax is also imposed, it is not possible to increase taxes further. Despite that, he had decided to award a certain salary hike through the budget. The cabinet agreed to this as well.
කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලය සම්පූර්ණයෙන් එකඟතාවය පළ කළ
Multiple electrical workers' unions and organizations are preparing to stage a protest tomorrow in line with the anniversary celebration of the Ceylon Electricity Board.
Now, a group is preparing to march to Colombo from Dulapitia.
The Ceylon Electricity Users Association says that the police are trying to prevent the march organised from Dulapitia to the Ministry of Power and Energy opposing the electricity tariff hike. The Electricity Users Association has informed the IGP in writing about the protest march to be held tomorrow, and the OIC of the Dulapitia police station has also been informed in writing. The Electricity Users Association informed the public regarding the protest march by distributing leaflets in Dulapitia this morning. Meanwhile, according to a notice issued yesterday, the Secretary of the Electricity Users Association, Sanjeeva Dhammika, was summoned to the Dulapitia police today, stating that it is necessary to investigate several complaints made by the people regarding the march.
The OIC told us that 10 complaints have been received against this protest march, against his activities and against the activities of his association from the people of the area. After going to the police station and meeting the OIC, I asked where are the complaints. The notice has been sent to him to investigate the complaints, but the complainants were not present. They did not explain what the complaints were. They said that there were complaints against the protest. So he said that under the police ordinance, the superintendent of police will notify him this evening about the matter and how to proceed.
Meanwhile, the police had deployed roadblocks at the Dulapitia town today.
ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථාවෙන්
These activities are done according to the provisions given by the Constitution. We are not doing anything illegal. It has been informed under the police ordinance. So please don't disturb this. We would like to ask the public if they want to continue to be puppets of the 225 in Parliament. If not, let's show them the people's power tomorrow.
The Minister of Power and Energy commented on the planned protests by CEB workers and other groups tomorrow.
The chairman and I spoke over the past 2 days over the planned protests for tomorrow. I told him not to engage, as it is the right of the workers. They have a right to protest. They can apply for leave and protest. However, if there is a disruption to the continuity of the services, we will take legal action. Anyone can stand up for their rights. The service period of the person named Ranjan Jailal is around 30 years, and for that period, he was always at home. He was paid a salary for staying at home. Such a group does exist.
The Ceylon Electricity Board Technological Engineers and Superintendent Union pointed out that every single electricity consumer is in debt of 71,500 rupees.
විදුලි බල මණ්ඩලය රුපියල් බිලියන 500කට අධික ප්‍රමාණයකින් ණය බරකින් පෙළලා ඉන්නවා.
The CEB is in debt to the tune of over 500 billion rupees. In other words, there are 7 million electricity consumers and every consumer is in debt of 71,500 rupees as an additional payment. This is a very serious situation. If we assume that the CEB or LECO representatives are visiting our house with a reduced bill is something to be happy about, we would be indirectly paying to settle 71,500 rupees by whatever other goods and services we use. Reducing the tariff alone is not the solution. A permanent solution can be achieved only by reducing the cost of living and by addressing inefficiencies of the administration and management.
පැහැදිලිවම මේ ජනන වියදම අඩු කිරීම සහ පරිපාලනයේ තියෙන අකාර්යක්ෂමතාවයේ කළමනාකරණය කිරීම තුලින් තමයි.
SLPP's Chamal Rajapaksa commented on the electricity tariff hike.
The electricity tariff is increasing day by day. Water supply was also disconnected. A person visited me yesterday seeking help to pay 18,000 rupees for his electricity bill. Mahinda Rajapaksa gave electricity to every home. Everyone obtained it and now cannot pay for it. How can I pay for that? You are not helping me as well. I sent him away with a small amount I had. Such is the situation.
The petition filed seeking an order to disqualify State Minister Diana Gamage from serving as a Member of Parliament was dismissed by the Court of Appeal with costs. President of the Court of Appeal, Justice Nisanka Bandula Karunaratne, announced that the petition filed seeking an order to disqualify State Minister Diana Gamage from serving as a Member of Parliament will be dismissed based on the majority decision of the 3-judge bench that considered the matter. Activist Oshula Herath had filed the petition, citing that Diana Gamage is a UK citizen, adding that according to the Constitution, she is not qualified to be elected to Parliament, be seated in the Parliament and cast her vote.
කොහොම වුණත් අධිකරණ තීන්දුව අපි අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨ අධිකරණයට ලබසන සත්‍ය වෙනකොට අභියාචනා කරන තීන්දුව ඒකට ඉදිරි කටයුතු කරන්න සමාජයට වැඩ කරන සමාජය වෙනුවෙන් පෙනී.
This was an act that targeted a person who worked for the people. State Minister Diana Gamage did not waste public funds. We are disappointed that some do not wish to accept the ruling of the court.
ඒක පිළිගන්න අකමැති වීම ගැන.
The 60th Asia-Pacific Broadcasting Union General Assembly took place in Seoul, South Korea today.
Group Director of the Capital Maharaja Group, Siobhan Daniel, addressed the high-level forum with reference to the gum at the program.
The 60th Asia-Pacific Broadcasting Union or ABU General Assembly took place in Seoul, South Korea today. The General Assembly was opened by the acting president of the ABU, Yang Cheng-sheng, and General Secretary Ahmed Nadeem. Under the theme, What Comes Next? The original question of sustainability. The 60th General Assembly aims to explore the critical question of sustainability in the broadcasting industry and shape the future of broadcasting in the Asia-Pacific region. Group Director of the Capital Maharaja Group, Siobhan Daniel, addressed the high-level forum with reference to the Gum at the program.
Seoul and South Korea are in fact miracles. In the 1950s, this nation was amongst the poorest in the world. But around 1970, President Park began a movement. They called it Samon. Gammatha was powered by the people of Sri Lanka themselves. South Korea was one of the poorest nations in 1950. Today, its per capita GDP is higher than even Japan's. That miracle became possible because of a movement by the people. And today, I'm very proud to say that Gammatha and Sri Lanka is creating its own little miracle.
Group Director, Legal and Human Resources of the Capital Maharaja Group, Suranga Jayalath, who is also the chair of the Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union's Intellectual Property and Legal Committee, spoke at the event. The 60th Asia Pacific Broadcasting Union or ABU General Assembly will continue until the 1st of November in Seoul, South Korea.
Newsfirst with the people.
Minister of Health Ramesh Pathirana summoned the Board of Directors of the National Drug Regulatory Authority to the Ministry of Health, where the new chairman was appointed. Specialist Dr. Ananda Vijay Vikrama was previously a member of the Board of Directors of the National Medicines Regulatory Authority, senior consultant physician at the Institute of Infectious Diseases. However, no appointment was made to the position of Chief Executive Officer. Member of the Board of Directors of the NMRA, Attorney Manoj Gamage, said that steps will be taken to appoint a new CEO. He added that the board will convene on Thursday. The procedure of improving the import of drugs at the NMRA came under fire after the NMRA had approved several consignments of substandard drugs to be imported into the country. The most recent allegation is the permission that was granted to an unregistered company to import human immunoglobulin, a drug manufactured with human blood used to treat patients with diseases that affect the nervous system at a cost of approximately 1 billion rupees. However, this company had imported a saline-like substance instead of the drug human immunoglobulin. Against such a backdrop, the president had removed Keheliya Rambukwala from the position of Minister of Health.
During the time when Ananda Vijay Vikrama was on the board of directors, despite him being right or wrong, there are several allegations leveled against him and the Criminal Investigations Department is currently investigating him. However, although now he is reappointed, the investigations are still not complete and we don't know if he is guilty or not. There has been no justice. We hope that swift justice can be done regarding the incidents of the NMRA data wipe and the massive corruption that took place under the guise of emergency purchases. There are many corrupt officials, even in the Ministry of Health. The CID is investigating the NMRA data wipe and the government analyst report has not yet been submitted for 2 years. We don't know what has happened.
The National Bikku Collective convened a media briefing in Colombo today.
We appreciate the President's move to replace the Health Minister. There are many questions as to what happened to the 80 billion rupees of government money. We don't know if they purchased medicine with that. Another program is being implemented by the NMRA to get rid of the thieves who deleted the data and to hire new ones. We would like to inform Minister Ramesh that the Ministry of Health cannot be recovered from this situation. The ministers and MPs get all the benefits and the people receive none. The people are always on the streets. They are trying to create conflicts using the security forces. In 1950, the salary of teachers was 350 rupees and the salary of a minister was 375. Today the teacher gets 50,000 and the minister gets over 500,000 rupees without their illegal acts. There is no blessing for this country.
Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa expressed his views on the increase in VAT and the electricity tariff revision process.
ප්‍රගතිශීලී බදු සහ ප්‍රතිගාමී බදු කියන බදු වර්ග
The increase of VAT to 18% is a distortion of the tax formula. The government has increased all forms of taxes to somehow recover the revenue lost to the state due to its own inefficiencies, and that burden is placed on the people. However, the government has not taken any measure for those groups who are evading taxes today. Increasing the tax burden of our dear people in this already suffering and bankrupt country is a very low act. Today, a cabinet decision was made so that the government has the ability to implement the electricity tariff amendment every 3 months. Making a request to the government, we reiterate that there is no mandate to increase the electricity tariff every once in 3 months. You are not mandated to increase the VAT. I would like to tell the government to go for a mandate of the people immediately.
ඔබට අගේ මත ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන බද්ද වැට් එක වැඩි කරන්නට ඔබට වරමක් නැහැ.
Speaking at a press conference today, Minister of Justice Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa explained the reasons for the country's economic crisis.
To protect and stabilize the economy of the country, the main and strongest financial discipline that a country should follow is to control foreign exchange. This destruction started since 2006, especially when Nivad Cabral became the governor of the central bank. Because at that time, I did not agree with the proposal to make him the governor of the central bank as the state minister. I opposed it. In the end, I said that if he was appointed, I would resign from the ministry. Accordingly, I resigned from my ministerial position on the 20th of April 2006. 53.5 billion in 12 years is disclosed by the Global Integrity Reports. But we know that the actual amount should be much more than that. If so, in 2022, it would have been $3 billion, which adds up to 56.5 billion. This should have been the amount that should have come to the country. We don't have the money that belongs to the government. This is the real reason why the economy collapsed. The invoices are sent by entering 100 million as 50 million, but once the invoice is received, the value is 100 million and they sell for 100 million. Then the intermediate amount is 40 or 50 million. It is invested there. If not, they are deposited in fixed deposits. They have started businesses in those countries. Those businesses are flourishing in those countries than they are doing here.
Crude oil prices in the world market have increased. Brent crude futures settled at $88.14 a barrel, while US West Texas immediate crude finished at $82.69 a barrel. Will there be a fuel price revision in Sri Lanka for November?
The law in the country is for the first week and not the first of the month. After the ministry gets the information, it will be discussed among 3 institutions and then a decision will be reached. The ministry will only regulate it. There is a period of 7 days to make the revision.
Divisavia, the second leg of the Divisavia program to provide much needed school books and stationery items to school children in Sri Lanka. 1st of November, Badulla, Yelua.
Dai Daruwange Anagate Venuwen Divisavia, LOLC Prajasatkaraක මෙහෙවර.
The United Nations Children's Fund, or UNICEF, raised the alarm over the rising number of child deaths in the Gaza Strip since the 7th of October, when Israel-Palestine tensions flared into a full-on armed conflict.
UNICEF spokesperson James Elder said in a UN press briefing in Geneva that Gaza has become a graveyard of children. Elder reiterated UNICEF's call for an immediate ceasefire and humanitarian access to supplies for the enclave, saying children in Gaza are dying not only due to airstrikes but also because of lack of needed medical care. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has rejected calls for a ceasefire, while the United Nations says that urgent ceasefire is a matter of life and death for millions of Palestinians. Last night, Netanyahu rejected calls for a ceasefire in Gaza, saying, quote, "This is a time for war," unquote. Israel said there were large exchanges with Hamas in Gaza overnight as its ground offensive continues. The IDF said its forces were attacked with anti-tank missiles and machine gun fire. Airstrikes on the Gaza Strip also continued overnight. Israel said it's focusing on northern Gaza but continues to strike all parts of the strip. Hamas said it ambushed 3 Israeli vehicles with anti-tank missiles and attacked ground troops with shells in southern Gaza. The Palestine Red Crescent Society said Israeli attacks near Al-Quds Hospital in Gaza City is causing fear and panic among displaced civilians and health workers. Bombardments reported across the besieged territory as Prime Minister Netanyahu rejected calls for a ceasefire. Hamas attacks have killed 1,400 people and seen at least 239 people kidnapped as hostages. The Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza said more than 8,000 people have been killed since Israel's retaliatory bombing began.
The official ICC Men's Cricket World Cup India 2023.
Bangladesh took on Pakistan in the ICC Cricket World Cup 23 at Eden Gardens in Kolkata. Today's game is the 7th match for each team in the World Cup. Now, cricket fans can watch and listen to all of the action of the World Cup via the MTV MBC network, the official local broadcast rights holder for the tournament. The matches are being streamed live on www.sirasatv.lk. And that brings us to an end of Primetime News on TV1 for tonight.
Thank you very much for watching. Good night.